Maxx Crosby tweets out, ships that wait for the perfect winds never sail, along with 1%, an eagle, and a diamond. Now, that leads to all sorts of interpretations because that comes right as the Raiders hire Clint Kubiak as their new head coach. And this is what we do. Every single time there's any piece of news with the Raiders and Max posts anything, everybody turns it into something. I think it's important to acknowledge as we start this conversation, Max is someone I consider a close friend. So I want to be honest about that as we have this conversation. That being said, Maxx Crosby has loudly told the world on his own podcast, when I have something to say, you'll hear it from me. You don't need to hear it from anybody else. Anything you hear about what I want from anybody not named Maxx Crosby isn't true. I have a podcast. If I have something to tell you, I will tell you. I see this. Everybody sees this in Carolina. They freak out because they're like, what's it mean for the future of Max and the Raiders? And my answer is nothing. Like, ships that wait for the perfect winds never sail is the sort of motivational quote that Max loves. He's that guy that reads Kobe quotes. He's that guy that sort of like, he's always looking for the little extra edge and a little extra piece that can push him to be the best that he can be. He's a 1%er. Every day he wants to be 1% better. He's driven by that. We take all of it to mean something about the Raiders. And I think sometimes what we forget in this situation is that Max can just be talking about Max.
I hear you there in saying that not everybody is A.J. Brown. Right. Not everybody is going to be, reading a book on the sidelines in order to send a message. And you know Max far more than any of us in this room would know. But I'll play devil's advocate here. I'll look at it from the other side of maybe a frantic Raiders fan that's desperately trying to decipher exactly what this would mean. We just had Frank Caliendo on. I need Frank Caliendo to come back and do his best Nicolas Cage, National Treasure impersonation, trying to decipher whatever this code might mean. I'm trying to figure out what this could mean within the context of Maxx Crosby and his satisfaction with the Raiders. Ships that wait for the perfect winds never sail. In a way, Fitz, I'm kind of interpreting that as if I'm constantly searching for the perfect situation, I'm never going to be happy. You could also look
Raiders
at
take. That's a pro Raiders take.
It's a pro Raiders take.
We're pro Raiders on it.
We have enough pro Raiders takes here on the internet.
Let's go.
I'm trying to help out Raiders fans everywhere. On the other side, you could read for it to be like, if you're just waiting here with the Raiders for so long, trying to find the most perfect situation to come to fruition here with this team, you're never going to be happy. So look elsewhere. Like, I think that we could all tie our brains into knots and little pretzels trying to figure out, is this pro Raiders? Is this anti-Raiders? Is this just something that Max found on Pinterest and thought, you know what? That's dope. I'm going to post it. Whatever you want to believe, this is, I think, confirmation bias in its highest form. If you think that Max wants to stay, you'll interpret it that way. If you think that Max wants out, you'll interpret it that way. And if you know Max the way that you know Max, it's just like, hey, this quote's dope. And I love the diamond emoji.
Look, there's something about it to me that is very simple. But that being said, I think the real part of this, to your point, is that there's a group of people that want Maxx Crosby to play for their favorite team. Mm-hmm. There's a group of people that want Maxx Crosby to go somewhere where he can actually win. There's a group of people that want to see Max stay with the Raiders. And there's a group of Raiders fans that don't want to hear any of it. And to me,
all valid.
Right, that's the biggest part of it, is that every ounce of that is real. But also, for the first time in my entire time covering Max, I would say that all of those situations are weirdly a win. Like the first time I met Max, we were getting tattoos together in Vegas, and it was for an interview piece for ESPN. We spent 4 or 5 hours together in the chair getting ink done and just talking about life. And from that moment, I just knew he's wired different and he's special. I think the number one part of this is like whatever happens with Maxx Crosby this offseason and the Raiders can be a benefit for everybody. Look, if he comes back to play for the Raiders next year, if everything's fine, this is a sign that he's really happy, nothing changes. Great. You need his presence on the field, and I think you need his presence in the locker room. I love the opportunity to have Maxx Crosby in the locker room, establishing the culture of what it looks like, because people that have played with him, that have played all over the NFL, will tell you afterwards, Max is one of those guys that makes you look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I pushing hard enough? Max is one of those guys that pushes everybody around him to be better. So I think if he's there, obviously we've seen the result on the field. Obviously we know he's a great player, and obviously he's great for the locker room. If he's not, if he wants out, if the Raiders decide that, hey, this is a long-term rebuild, I also think that's healthy. Like, I want Maxx to go wherever Maxx is happy. And if Maxx needs to go somewhere else to win a bunch of games and win a Super Bowl and the Raiders get a haul of picks in return, sure, they may not use those picks well. Most bad teams don't. But in this new regime, your hope is going to be, hey, we get just a whole sack full of picks. We're going to use that to help the rebuild. The fear I have is that if everybody just sits here and keeps running it back this way year in and year out, what you end up with is you've got this situation where Maxx is past his prime and the Raiders are finally decent and now there's no value in it. That's a few years down the road. So I would just implore everybody that wants something for Maxx or for the Raiders here to understand that I think for the first time ever, it's win-win. It's win-win for the team. It's win-win for Maxx. Whatever Maxx wants, I think the team will honor and respect. And in that process, I just feel like if he's a Raider this fall, then I'm happy because I got his jersey hanging up in my office because I love the dude. If he's not a Raider this fall, I want him to win a bunch of football games because I've got his jersey hanging up in my office and I love the dude. Like, I think it can all be a win.
You're the Raiders fan.
Yeah.
You have the Raiders tattoo. You have the Raiders helmet behind you in your home office. What do you want the Raiders to do? Take your friendship with Maxx out of it, because I know that's a big part of it as well, just for you and your own personal feelings. What's the best thing that the Raiders can do moving forward?
I want Maxx to be a Raider. Like, I love my team sucks. And it has been tough to watch the Raiders for the last several years. You know it's not tough? Turning on the TV and knowing I'm going to get Maxx, right? Like, I'm going to watch that. The number of times I have texted him after a game and said, we suck, but it's amazing to watch you. You know, and I think that that's a gift. To me, I can watch individual greatness and see it for the gift, right? And so I don't, like, in a perfect world for me, Maxx never plays for another team. Somehow, some way the Raiders get it together. Everybody wins, and I can celebrate, you know, I can have a cigar with him at a Super Bowl. Like, that's a perfect world. I don't know if that's ever going to come to fruition. I think this is a really key turning point, though. A new coach walks into the building, right? He's heard new coaches over and over and over again say, we're going to reestablish. Like, he's heard the same spiel from everybody. I thought the body language when he was at the Pete Carroll press conference was telling to the fact that he's like, heard this before, right? Like, so I don't know how he's going to respond to a new regime, but my hope as a fan is that it is truly this come-together moment where he sees something different, he feels something different, and he can help be part of what pulls this franchise out of the basement.
I hear you. And I'm always of the belief that teams don't get better by trading great franchise cornerstone players. Period. Point blank, period. I also don't think that the Raiders are going to enter this next era if they don't do everything in their power to protect Fernando Mendoza. Everything about the Raiders' future is tied up into Fernando Mendoza. Throw Clint Kubiak out the window, throw Tom Brady out the window. It's all about Fernando Mendoza. And that's not Raiders specific. That's every team in the National Football League that is drafting and developing their quarterback of the future. So I'm kind of looking at it that if Maxx Crosby is your ticket to building up the offensive line, getting some of those draft picks, giving Fernando Mendoza more pieces around him offensively, I would have to do it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I lived through the Khalil Mack trade. Yeah. And the Khalil Mack trade will always be something to me that just sort of breaks my heart. It never worked, right? So you're 1,000% right. But
there's no guarantees.
I think the other side of it is Fernando Mendoza having Tom Brady be his Alex Smith, his person that, you know, Patrick Mahomes, I say all the time, credits Alex Smith for teaching him how to be a pro. For me, Fernando Mendoza having Tom Brady in his ear saying, here's how you structure your week. Here's the way you should eat. Here's the way you should train. Here's how you break down the film. Like, having that on one side and having Maxx in the locker room every day saying, here's what it takes to be the best. Like, Fernando Mendoza has told the world he's addicted to winning. I don't think there's a better person he could hitch his wagon to than Maxx Crosby to show him what it's like. Because I will never forget, I was sitting with Maxx when he got his first massive deal, and I said, what did you do the day after you got the money? And he said, I went to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, because that's what he does every day. I want that around Fernando Mendoza.